Hey friends, welcome to Wednesday sessions tonight from the Children's Building. Our children and youth are wrapping up summer, a different summer, but even so, the start of school is around the corner, and with that comes a lot of questions for our families and our children. So it's a particularly important time for us as a church to have these families in mind. Going back to school will look different, and so that brings a fair bit of questions, especially for our students themselves. So let's do remember them as they wrestle with some anxiety and uncertainty about what school looks like. And we want whatever the return to school is for them, we want it to be something they can celebrate and enjoy and make the most of. Of course, here in the Children's Building, downstairs is our preschool ministries, where our preschool ministries operates. And during the week, that looks like our Child Development Center. And it's a good moment to celebrate the good things happening in the CDC. We've been back operating now for a month, and things are going well, and really appreciate the work of Jennifer Cox, our director, and Nancy Aiken's direction and partnership as well in our CDC. And never a bad time to offer a prayer for that ministry of our church to folks in our community. On our prayer list, no one currently in the hospital, no member reported in the hospital, but we do have a few updates since the last time we were together. Ron Smith, one of our members, has just last week was having some evaluation in Atlanta related to some heart procedure, and so Ron's hopeful about the prognosis and the opportunity to pursue the procedure. So we want to remember Ron in these days and join with him and express and kind of praying for a path to open up to go forward. Also got word that Louise Burton's daughter Angie had gallbladder surgery this morning, so we want to remember Angie and Louise and their family and pray for a speedy recovery for Angie. Nancy Aiken's brother Wayne, who some of you have been around Nancy for a long time, have heard her talk about her big brother, got some bad news this last week. Wayne will begin radiation and chemotherapy for a brain tumor, and so that's quite a blow to the family, of course. And we want to remember Nancy and her big brother Wayne and their mother and other brother and extended family during these initial days and what will be an extended time of treatment. We also heard this week about Mike Wells being added to the to hospice. Some of you have had contact with Liz and Mike in recent days, but many may have not heard the word yet, but that's a grief for us. We love Mike and Liz, and this has been a long battle for Mike as well. They live in Fort Payne now, but Gary was able to be with them a couple weeks ago, drop in and have a good visit. So let's remember Mike and Liz in the coming days. And also the loss of Sarah McFarland's mother in recent days. So let's remember Sarah and Jay and the girls in the wake of the death of Sarah's mother. Gary will be up soon with something for us this evening, and before that, let me offer a prayer. Lord, we are continually grateful for the way you work in our lives and work in our fellowship, and as we even say the names of folks who've been added to our prayer list, we speak those names as a prayer and ask for you to rush in and be for these friends and loved ones the very thing they need. Comfort for grief, healing for illness, hope where there is uncertainty or anxiety. We know that you are enough and you meet our needs and have done so, and because of that we pray with confidence that as you have been to us all we have needed, that you will be for these our friends. We pray that in Christ with continued confidence in your provision. Amen. All right, that's it for me tonight. Until next time.
Good evening on this balmy July evening. It's been kind of cloudy and sunny back and forth all day. Hope you're having a good day where you are. So grateful to have this opportunity to talk with you a few moments. I want to do two things tonight. One of those is to just tell you a little bit about what's up ahead. It's been such a difficult time to be figuring everything, but I want to talk about what it will be like when we go forward. There's no need for us to really rehearse all the disruption that we've been through. I do have to offer a word of appreciation to you as our church family for your extraordinary attentiveness and your loyalty during this time. With all of the hassle and the inconvenience and the isolation that we've had from one another, we've managed to carry on quite well. So, what's next? Well, we will go forward. Every day is a new and interesting challenge. We're trying to figure out now, how do we pull off a deacon ordination service? Go figure that. More on that in a future time. But for right now, the journey that we're making is really not back at all. The journey is to a world that we're going to rebuild that'll be a little different, and we're still figuring all of that out. That said, there are a lot of things that remain the same. They're worth restoring and continuing, and they'll come around. Some things never left. Teaching the Bible, prayer, love for each other, personal contacts, worship. We're just doing them differently, but the truth is they've gone right on. We have to start somewhere. So we've already been establishing some new practices and spaces. For example, we've understood and discovered how enormously valuable our outdoor spaces are, and we just haven't used those as much through the years other than the parking lot. And that's where we'll probably plan to begin. Our staff has been spending lots of time brainstorming about ways that we can open back up and keep our people safe at the same time. And so here are some first steps that'll be coming in the time up ahead. Some of when that is will be determined by meeting the benchmarks that we have of decreasing cases. So I can't give you a date just yet, but as soon as we can, we'll have some opportunities up ahead. Number one, the amphitheater has become a very valuable space for us. We've already used it several times for funerals and small gatherings. And we're talking through how we might do some outdoor worship opportunities and teaching opportunities in that space. It's possible for us to have a sound system there. We have electrical outlets that are run out there, and we've gotten those checked out and working. Numbers will be limited to healthy spacing, but it will be an opportunity to begin to offer some live experiences over in the fall as we get going again. We'll let you know as soon as we have settled on a date that we're going to do some things. We're also planning to make some real good use of outside spaces for some live gatherings for small classes, teaching events, and small gatherings. We're having planning conversations about possible fellowship events that we can have and things that we can do that enable us to do it well within the bounds of safety and yet also to have some sense of beginning to be physically on the property together. We're having an outdoor musical event next Thursday, August 6th on the lawn next to the porte-cochere. This is another space that we are going to experiment with. And Pierce Pettis, a songwriter, was supposed to be with us back in the spring, and we postponed that twice, and we're going to have that next week. We are going to restrict the number of people who come to a manageable number, and people will enter at the gate, and only those who have reserved a space will be able to come. If you're interested in coming to that, you will come to the gate. You need to contact the office and let Brittany know that you want to attend, or you can go online and contact her with an email. This will be the completion of our spring speaker series. Pierce is an outstanding songwriter. He's been covered by some really big time people, but he's also a wonderful performer. And so attenders are asked to bring their own chairs and sit in specially designated and well-spaced places out on the lawn, and to wear masks. But this will give us a chance to try that space out. And, part of our motive is to see how it does for a place for a church gathering when we have to do that. We're not charging for this event, but we are asking for reservations. So write Brittany if you're interested. And I think there's a Facebook page about that thing also. We will limit it because of health department guidelines. So these are some things that we can do to reconnect in a safe and meaningful way and strengthen our time together. But meanwhile, our committee is carefully monitoring all the latest things, data that we have. The country is a mess right now, the southern states especially. But let me give you some unexpected good that's come from this. Our online video streams have, and I went back and looked at it as of 2 days ago. In 22 Sundays and the Good Friday service, which unbelievably, our Good Friday service had 900 views on YouTube and Facebook. And that service and the 22 Sundays have been viewed a total in our Wednesday nights of 22,489 times. Our average Sunday morning attendance in terms of views, and we just don't know how many people that represents. It could be a good bit more than that, but the average attendance of the Sundays and Good Friday is 693 average attendance. And if it's, if even a third of those is more than one person watching, that means we have a very much larger attendance to our worship than we typically do in the summer. And even if we take the first Sunday out, which was an outlier of 2,200, it was a crisis time and everybody was online. And we take out Good Friday, we still have average 540 views per Sunday. And that doesn't even account for radio listeners and our special events. Our dialogue on race and reconciliation was viewed more than 1,000 times. We're reaching out in a dramatic new way, one that we might never have done unless the circumstances called it forth from us. So even in the worst times, unintended goods come forth, and we attribute the graciousness of God to inspiration and good things that we've done. So one thing I want you to do is just stay the course. Let's keep up the good work, keep praying, keep loving service going for each other, stay in contact with each other. There's lots to feel good about. Your staff and leaders have worked very hard to keep us together, and we've connected to some new people. So all of this is not in vain. And as we go forward, there's a lot of good work to be done. I look forward to those new beginnings when they come along. And we certainly, like schools and everybody else, have such uncertainty about the immediate little time period here going into the fall. We prioritize safety. That's got to come first. So anyway, I look forward, oh my goodness, to the time when I can look at some of you personally again, maybe for the first time in a long time. And also planning with our deacons in the month of September to have deacon gatherings, deacon family groups on Zoom calls with the pastor, so that every deacon family group will meet with their outgoing deacon and their incoming deacon, or if their same deacon is staying on, that we will have a time so that you can be with the pastor and also your deacon, and we'll have a chance to get to know each other. If your deacon is a new person for you, then we'll introduce them and let you get to know them a little bit. And we're going to arrange that upcoming in the time after Labor Day. So be watching for that. It'll be a great time for us to have good time together as we move into the next phase of our life together. I'm about to begin a new sermon series this week. It will consist of 5 sermons. I've preached these before, but I'm coming back to these texts again and treating them for some obvious reasons to me. And that is that we are in a time of great change and great challenge for the church, but also a great responsibility to proclaim and to live the gospel in this moment. I'm going to preach on the ministry of reconciliation. And reconciliation is something that it's one of those church words, but you reconcile your checkbook. That means you try to work it out so that everything balances out. And literally, it is about exchange. And it also has to do with putting things right, putting them in right order. And you can't help but look around in our culture at this moment and um, recognize how disordered it is. And it's easy for us to react to the anger and the violence and the discord and distrust that's everywhere. It's easy to point fingers, but building solutions and fixing problems is far more tedious and time consuming as a process. As far as the church is concerned, though, this is right down our alley. It's the kind of thing that we should do. The book of Ephesians talks about it considerably, and 2 Corinthians chapter 5. Um, there are some passages that we need to look at. Let me show you this list of passages that are about reconciliation in the New Testament. They are 4 very crucial passages. So Romans chapter 5, 8 through 11 is about the profound transformation that's come about through the gospel, enabling us to be in right relationship with God. The Colossians passage that I'll speak on is about the cosmic reach of the gospel, that God's intentions include the whole of his creation. When God created the universe, it's easy for us to think that there was a great plan, everything went wrong, and everything is messed up, and God's going to have to tear it up and start over. But in fact, God has never given up on the creation, never given up on humanity and the world. And Colossians has a beautiful image of that. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 14 to 21 literally talk about the church and its ministry of reconciliation. And we'll talk about that we have been entrusted with the ministry of reconciliation. And then in Ephesians 2, Paul talks about how this has lived out between Jews and Gentiles, but we can extrapolate that out to all of the conflicts of humanity. Think about racial divides and religious divides and all the things that separate people. And he talks at considerable length in Ephesians 2 about how Christ has brought all of these down, broken down the walls of separation, and enabled us who were separated from each other now to be together. So working on building peace in the world is not some extra thing that we get distracted in the church. Telling people about Jesus and embodying the gospel in our work in the world, being peacemakers, being those who feed the hungry, being those who break down the barriers between groups that are divided from one another. They are not exclusive of each other. There was a great missionary some years ago who wrote a book called The Open Secret. It was about the Christian mission. Leslie Newbigin was his name. And Newbigin said there's a kind of inner logic to the gospel. And it is no matter what end of the gospel you begin with, if you have a passion for telling people about Jesus and winning them to him, you're going to be led out eventually into social needs and the injustices and wrongs of society. And if you begin on the other end and you're working on the problems of the world, you're going to see this great spiritual void that's there too. Whichever side you start on, you sort of end up being pulled toward the other. And people who try to divide these from each other are really trying to divide the truth of Scripture itself. There's no way to pull them apart. They just inevitably are part of God's great concern to redeem and reclaim and to save the whole world that's out there. But these are part of our work. I have a shelf at my house that has, I don't know how many books are there, maybe 100 or less, but it's one small shelf over to the side. You know that I've got books and books and books, and I'm in the process of downsizing that a little bit. But one of the things that I decided to do in thinking about this time of my life was to pick out those books that have continued to speak to my heart over the years, that shaped me very powerfully and really influenced the way I think. And one of the books on that shelf is a book called Pastoral Care in Historical Perspective. I read it back in I guess in maybe the 70s or 80s. William Klebish and Charles Jekyll were the writers, and they had a thesis that there were four things that the Christian church does in all times, no distinction. Every generation of Christians have done this as their ministry. They've had the ministry of healing, and by that they meant, of course, physical healing, but also spiritual and emotional healing, that there was a ministry of healing that corresponds to the ministry of Jesus. Secondly, that churches in one way or another have always done the ministry of guiding. Guidance being helping people know God's will and helping people to deal with and avoid sin. When they fail, what do we do? How do we guide them? And so out of this has come the modern profession of counseling and psychology. But for centuries, it was a work of the church to guide people's lives and direct them. Thirdly, there was the ministry task of sustaining people. And this is one that churches have done most consistently. And we all know the ministry of sustaining. When your life falls apart and people bring food over to your house, or they call you up and they check on you, or after you've had a death in your family that for a long time they care about you, that's the ministry of sustaining. It is holding people up while they go through things. But the fourth one that they talked about, and at the end, toward the back of the book, they had all of these famous Christians through the ages as they practiced these four things and how they did them. The fourth one was the ministry of reconciliation. And by that, they meant very simply two things. One, helping people to be in right relationship with God. And secondly, to help people be in right relationship with each other. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbors yourself. We say it. This is the whole thing. But the truth is, those are two of the most complicated failings that we run into everywhere. The failure to acknowledge God and the failure to love one another as God intends us to do. So the ministry of reconciliation is about the ways that pastors they were writing about. But I've taken that to mean, because I'm in the believers' church, where we say the ministry of the church belongs to the whole church, not just to the professional staff. Reconciliation is the work we all do out in the world of helping heal the separations between people, help people overcome the separation that they feel with God, the estrangement between God and myself, but also the estrangement that people have within themselves, the brokenness inside their hearts. And so reconciliation is really a central work. They originally wrote this, I think, in the 60s or early 70s, and of course that was during Vietnam and during the racial conflict of that time, and all the ways that there was great distress going on in the world. And it's strange that we are still wrestling with a lot of these same things now. But on the other side of it, it makes what we are trying to do as the church even more relevant for this moment. And so those four things: healing, guiding, sustaining, reconciling. We have given away so much important work to secular organizations as the Christian faith, but the truth is we have huge place to play in these four things. And particularly in the ministry of reconciliation. And that's what I want to speak to in the next 5 Sundays. So I hope you will join me. And I thank you for your love and care for your church, because the work we do really matters and it's really important. And as we move toward the fall, I also want to say a word to all of our parents that we will be praying for you as you make challenging decisions. Pray for our teachers, pray for our administrators and people who are struggling to know the right thing to do in this time. Thank you for being here today. Stay safe, be careful, practice love of God and love for each other in whatever way you are able in this time. And we'll see you Sunday at worship.